The private sector, the development industry, owners of land, build Toronto. They're the people who go out, make the decisions, design buildings, and build them.
Sometimes developers will be the ones who make all the important decisions because they'll come with a final plan and they won't be interested in changing any of it. And so the building that they want is in very large part what ends up getting constructed. In other neighborhoods, residents have the opportunity to give a lot of feedback in the process, and councillors have the opportunity to impress that on the developers. So then councillors and neighborhoods can have the opportunity to really have a big part in determining how the neighborhood looks.
If you applied a standard to this system that said before plans are submitted to the city, they go through the community. If you get the community to have a sense of itself, then a developer can come and say, well, that's the will of those guys. Then they can take their chances with the bureaucracy and they can take their chances with the system. But the weight should be on sensible negotiations with the people who live there.
I think community direction is critical in the process because they give input to city planning, and so it's a joint approach with city planning, the community, and the applicant and their design team. Probably the most important factor in terms of the process is timing. The quicker the time frame, I find the more a developer has to put into the best of the design features that the city needs. The longer it takes, the greater the financing cost, and it seems to affect the ultimate product that's built in this city.
Collaborative planning is a search for solutions to really difficult problems of fitting in development into an already existing context, or even development where there is no context and creating a context, but it's pulling together people who have an interest in where the city goes and how it looks and how it feels and how it works, getting them all together, citizens, developers, real estate people, and environmentalists, city council, elected officials.
I think we need to accept that everybody is looking to make the city better. People assume that everybody's in it for their own self-interest as opposed to into it for a broader public interest. And so we set up a process of conflict as opposed to a process of collaboration. I don't believe that conflict is inevitable. And so personally, I'm always trying to find a way to negotiate something that gets rid of the conflict and gets everybody to some type of a negotiated resolution.
I think right now the city seems to be in a state where some parts are really taking shape and have a beautiful facade at the street and beautiful designs above, and some areas of the city have not caught up.
The downtown core, I think, is a city of neighborhoods, which is what makes Toronto really special. So the city looks like a whole lot of variety and rhythm and interesting little nooks and crannies and so on. Other parts of the city, it looks pretty different.
I think the city looks very different depending on where you are in the city. And I think there are portions of the city that look very ugly. I think there are portions of the city that look absolutely exquisite. And I think what is perhaps the most exciting is that almost everywhere you look, some aspect of the city is changing.
It's hard to say how the city looks. The city looks different in different places. In some places, it's very attractive. The neighborhoods are terrific. Some new buildings are, I think, very attractive. They relate to the street very well. But overall, I think the quality of architecture in the city leaves something to be desired.
Most of the important decisions that involve the participation of the city get made by the local councillor. I think the pros are obvious. It's the fact that the municipal government is the closest government to the people. It is, of any level of government, the most grassroots of governments. I think the con is that I still haven't been convinced that the local interest is always the public interest.
I think the local councillor is the circus master. He or she can create an environment where the community can imagine its own change. And there's nothing that generates change faster than a public meeting. There's a period in a meeting where it kind of stalls, and then someone will say something, and it's like watching a crystal form. And you know, when you get a saturated solution, crystal forms, and it goes zoom, and now you've got some sugar, right?
I think decisions made about the city should be made in the city, not by an appointed body, which can distort where decisions go. And I think if that were the case, then the decisions would be taken more seriously. And I think that if we can find better ways to do collaborative planning, that would really improve decision-making in the city.
I think building Toronto, if we can get back to looking at design in the public realm and how buildings address the street and stop focusing on density numbers and height numbers, will be halfway there to building a much better city.
I think because the buildings in so many parts of the city that are even still downtown are still quite low, you see a lot of sky. And one of the things I'm not looking forward to about the condo development that's happening right in my neighborhood is I think I'm about to lose a lot of sky.
Different city councilors have entirely different ways of dealing with planning and development applications, and so it can really vary depending on the neighborhood that you're in. So it can be a very collective, participatory process with neighborhoods involved from the beginning all the way to the end in some neighborhoods. In other ones, it can just be something you find out of the blue when a shovel goes in the ground and suddenly there's a condo looming next to you.
Lots of bars open up in a neighborhood, not because the people who live in that neighborhood need 15 bars in a 3-block radius in order to go out and have a good time, but because it's perceived from a development perspective, there is a period of time where you can cash in, but it's not connected in any way to the people who are living there and who are feeling the fallout of both the boom and the bust. I was making small talk with someone at the bar about the condo as it was being developed, and I said, oh God, it's just going to be so different in here. And I don't know that this reflects the feelings of the owners, but the guy behind the bar said really flippantly, like, oh, well, I mean, we won't last.
I think if the focus, which is now directed towards design, allowed flexibility to the applicants' architects and designers, as well as the city's expert architects and designers, and had an initial 1 or 2 community consultation meetings, but then allowed the experts in architecture and design to do their thing, so to speak, I think it would help tremendously.
There is a process involved often, which involves the community, city politicians, and other interest groups in trying to influence how buildings look and how they relate to their environment.
I think that the process could work better if more councillors did the type of thing that we do and convene more meetings, make sure that neighbourhoods have the opportunity to hear and see plans for buildings as early as possible in the process when it's a lot easier to make the changes that neighbourhoods want before ideas are locked in and approved by City Council.
My personal involvement is one which is always an attempt to get a cooperative resolution. It is always better if the dollars are spent on the development and the community, not on a cumbersome litigation process. And I always say, if it's a compromise felt by all, then that means everyone's got a little bit of what they like and hopefully not too much of what they don't like.